Hi, welcome to 1e4 part 3. In this course, I'm going to complete the 1e4 repertoire, the lifetime repertoire. And it's a very important part of it, the third part. We're going to take a look at the entire Sicilian defense. So after 1e4, c5, knight f3, the move I recommend. And now everything is covered. So if you have this course, you'll have the whole Sicilian covered. Part 1 and part 2 have the rest after e4 covered. So part 1 was, 1 e4, e5, and part 2 is everything but e5 and c5. And in this introduction, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this very course, what is going to be covered, what are the different Sicilians that are covered, and my approach to tackle them. I don't have a one-fits-all approach. I think chess is a more complicated game than that. If you want to play chess well, if you want to play it correctly and ambitiously, well, you cannot just do the same thing against everything. Chess is also not a game of your own strategy. It's not like you have a master plan, and you build your army in a certain way and then you go to attack. And chess is a game where you react to your opponent's move by move. Of course, you have certain ideas, you have certain anticipations, but depending on what your opponent playing, depending on their strategy, you have to constantly adjust yourself. Chess is that kind of combat. And so if you want to play it well, you have to sometimes play positional, sometimes play tactical, sometimes prevent your opponent threats, sometimes create your own. So there will be very different approaches to different Sicilians. They all have something in common. That is that I believe they're all very sound. And I think my recommendations are, first of all, very principled, but also something that I could explain, something that you could understand. And I think I've stayed true to my philosophy for pretty much all of my chessable courses, and that is, I think there are variations and there are systems that fit both very strong players, the top players, and also less experienced players, the club players, the amateurs. I think it's possible to play or to try and play chess in the same way. Of course, down the road, top grandmaster will play better than a club player or an amateur, but at the start I don't see anything wrong with the club player or an amateur having high hopes, high aspirations, and playing at least the opening phase in the best way possible, giving yourself also the best possible shot the game. And of course things go wrong down the road, but there's only this much you can do in the opening, and that is to play good chess. So I do go for good chess everywhere. Let's look at what is there to look. So first of all, there's the knight of Sicilian, d6, d4, cd9, d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. I made a big knight of course for black. Knight of is a big part of this course as well. We had to come up with a solution here, and I'm really happy with what I've came up with. Recommend the move h3. This is a very big line. Black has lots of options. I'll give you a little preview into e5. Here I recommend knight to f3. Knight is surprisingly well positioned here. Often we'll go for g4, g5 when knight guarding the g5 square will be of great use. Sometimes when black goes for h6, g5 a trade happens there and knight hops into g5. Sometimes even ends up on f7. A lot is there to talk about here. There's a chapter for this. There's even a separate overview of the Najdorf, because besides e5 there are lots of possibilities, e6, g6, and all kinds of different ones, sidelines, knight c6, and so on. So Najdorf is a big part of the course. There are a lot of sidelines. First of all, two. So there's b6. There's the Okelli with a6, against which I go for the Maroczy bind. I go for Maroczy bind setup. That is this one with a lot of space against various Sicilians, where black allows us to do so, where black doesn't challenge the center early on. So against the Okelli, I go for the Maroczy bind. Against the dragon without knight f6, so for example in this move order after g6 and knight c6, I go for the Maroczy bind. Also against the Khan Sicilian with e6, d4, cd9, d4, and a6. Also, we have the time to go for c4. I go for the Maroczy bind once again as well. So of course, this Maroczy bind is a big part of the course, and look at the different variations. And I think if you study the course, you get a good idea and good feel for the various setups and for how to treat these positions. There's also some sidelines after e6. So there's a chapter on e6 sidelines. After d4, cd, knight d4, there's bishop c5, bishop queen b6, very dubious moves, and knight f6, knight c3, bishop b4. The so-called pin variation, very popular on amateur level, but very, very dubious. 5 queen b6, also terrible, I believe. There's that. There are also sidelines, the non-e6 sidelines, as I mentioned, b6, a6. There is the Nimzo-Rubinstein, knight f6, which is a pretty big sideline. I think it has its own chapter in the end. And let's move on to some other big variations of the Sicilian we should still talk about. So there is the Taimanov with e6, d4, cd, knight d4, knight c6, knight c3, and now queen c7 is one. That's the main Taimanov, bishop e3, a6, queen f3 is my recommendation. Also a big part of this course. And there is 5a6 Taimanov. Now, without queen on c7, this whole queen f3 setup will not make much sense. But knight x6 becomes very attractive. After bc, the pawn on a6, it's useless, was a waste of tempo. And there I recommend the simple setup with bishop d3, castle, and then queen f3. I'm really happy with what I recommend here, so definitely look forward to you finding that out as well. These are the Taimanov's Sicilian. There is the 4-knight Sicilian after e6, d4, cd, knight d4, knight f6, or knight c6 first, knight c3, knight c6. So there are different orders to get some of these Sicilians. By the way, black could start with 2 knight c6 as well. But since we go d4 against knight c6 and against e6 and against d6 on move 2, we transpose eventually into all of these Sicilians. And for us, it doesn't matter what order you choose. Against the 4-knight Sicilian, I recommend knight db5. And that is somewhat to do with the fact that after d6, bishop f4, e5, bishop g5, we land in a Sveshnikov Sicilian. And this is also part of my recommendation against the Sveshnikov. So after knight c6 on move 2, d4, cd, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, e5, knight b5, d6, bishop g5 is my recommendation to give you a little taste of what's coming after a6, knight a3, b5, knight 1, b1, knight 8, b1 is a new little twist, rare sideline. The knight was badly placed on a3 and is getting repositioned right away. That's for the Sveshnikov Sicilian. There is also the Kalashnikov Sicilian. There is knight c6 on move 2, and after d4, cd, knight d4, e5, knight b5, and now not knight f6 but d6. After knight c3, black can transpose to the Sveshnikov, but can also delay it. Some early a6, b5, a6, bishop e6, bishop e7. All these ideas are covered as well in a separate Kalashnikov chapter. There's, of course, the Dragon Sicilian. I made a course on the Dragon as well, by the way. So for black against e4 so far, I made a course on the French defense and on the Dragon and the Knight of Sicilian. So Dragon is one of my own openings for black. But I think what I recommend is sort of like, it is essentially it's the main line of my black repertoire as well on the Dragon. And in the end, we have a position where white is a little better. White has good results. And with best play, black can certainly eventually reach the equality. But it seems that in practical games, even strong grandmasters have failed to do that. So I will just recommend the main Yugoslav attack with bishop e3, f3, queen d2, and long castle. I think very promising for white. But again, to make the point clear, against the Dragon, I wasn't able to refute the Dragon, and that's why also my black course is still very much alive. The Scheveningen Sicilian after d6 or e6 first, different orders, d4, cd, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, and e6. This is the Scheveningen Sicilian, considered very dubious nowadays because of the move g4. The Keres attack, this is also covered, of course, in Scheveningen chapter. I should mention, some sidelines like bishop d7 here. They're covered. There's also knight c6 on move 2, d4, cd, knight d4, queen b6. These kind of sidelines, they're all covered in the sideline chapter. Another big part of the course is the classical Sicilian, and that is 2d6 or knight c6. Again, different orders, but the key position is after d4, cd, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, and knight c6. So this knight f6, d6, knight c6 placement, that is the classical Sicilian, against which I recommend the Rauser. And I'm very happy with that. That being said, the Rauser is Very, very big chapter. Black has a lot of setups, to the point that I was even considering to recommend an alternative. But at the end of the day, my general philosophy of playing principal chess, playing the moves that I believe in, led me to the Rouser. At the end of the day, we do have to study all the setups and know how to deal with them, because I think if we do, we will have a very promising position. I think you got a little overview of what's out there. So again, a mixed bag of things, a lot of Maroczy binds, which are the slow positional grinds. We try to suffocate our opponents there. A lot of very sharp variations. The G4, the Scheveningen against the Kir's attack against the Scheveningen, as you had seen, the Queen f3 setups against the Taimanov, also very, very sharp. The H3 G4 approach against the Najdorf, doesn't get any sharper than that. So a combination, as always, when our opponents allow us, we are ready to attack. If our opponents allow us positional bind, we are ready to give them that. So a lot to uncover. But as usual, I try to make the course filled with explanations. I try to go for sound lines, and the idea is that the moves are as natural as possible. So oftentimes you might forget the move, but then hopefully you remember the ideas, and the right move anyway appears. And even if it's a wrong move, you still remember the ideas, and maybe you'll make something out of that as well. Because of course, remembering everything, even with the move trainer, is going to be hard to accomplish. But playing sound chess, understanding the ideas, I think that will get you very, very far. And I think it's time for you to embark on the journey and take a look at the variations, take a look at the chapters. So thank you for watching this introduction, and see you.